There's a moment when you realize wealth isn't just money, it's silence. The kind that only comes when you own the ground beneath entire cities. When your name isn't on a Forbes list, it's carved into the skyline itself. 8,000 supercars, planes wrapped in real gold, palaces that could swallow neighborhoods whole. For these men, that's not the end game, that's the warm-up. They don't just collect billions, they hold the pulse of economies, the rise and fall of oil prices, the future of nations. All of it flows through their hands. But here's the question no one asks. Who among them truly leads? Who sits at the center of the wealthiest empire the Arab world has ever seen? Not the loudest, not the flashiest, but the one with the deepest roots, the quietest power, the kind that doesn't need to be announced because everyone already knows. This isn't a list of names. It's a hierarchy of influence, a ladder of legacy, and by the end, you'll see someone you never expected. Someone who built an empire not from a throne, but from vision alone. Welcome. Let's begin. Number 10. Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, the man who turned luxury into religion. $30 billion. That's the number attached to his name. But numbers don't tell the story. Not really. Because when you pay $20,000 for a 30-minute haircut, you're not buying a service. You're buying a statement, a declaration, that time, distance, and logic bend to your will. He didn't just fly a barber in from London. He sent a private jet across continents for half an hour, and when the scissors stopped, the barber flew home. That's not indulgence, that's theater. A performance of power so absurd, it becomes art. But the haircut is a footnote. The real story? 7,000 cars. Not a collection, an archive, the largest private fleet on Earth. Lamborghini Venenos, only 3 exist. He owns 1. Bugatti Veyrons in configurations you'll never see on a showroom floor. Custom paint, custom interiors, custom everything. The total value of that garage? $2 billion. You could drive a different car every single day for 20 years and still not finish the rotation. And then there's the plane, a Boeing 747, $100 million off the lot. But he didn't leave it stock. He turned it into a flying monument. Gold sinks, gold showers, gold toilets. Every surface that could shine does. The price? $133 million. Not because it flies better, but because it had to reflect who he is. Untouchable. His home isn't a palace. It's a city, the Astana Nurul Iman, 2.15 million square feet, the largest residential palace on the planet. You can't put a price on it, not because it's priceless in the poetic sense, but because no one has ever tried to sell something like it. It exists in its own category, beyond market, beyond comparison. And he didn't stop there. A hotel in London, $400 million. A chateau in France, $110 million. A villa in Beverly Hills, $30 million. He doesn't live in these places. He just owns them. Like monuments to the idea that everywhere he goes, there should be a throne waiting. But if you think that's the peak, you're not ready for what's next. Because the next king doesn't just own gold. He controls it. Every barrel, every pipeline, every decision that moves the needle on global markets. Number 9, King Salman of Saudi Arabia, the man who rules the ground beneath the wealth. $2 trillion. That's not his fortune. That's his family's. The House of Saud. A dynasty so vast, so entrenched, that their wealth isn't measured in assets. It's measured in influence, in leverage, in the ability to reshape economies with a single policy shift. King Salman's personal share? $20 billion, a fraction, but still more than most nations will ever see. And with it comes a life that doesn't just touch luxury, it defines it. His son, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, known as MBS, runs the show with an iron grip. The name Jamal Khashoggi still echoes, a reminder that this family doesn't negotiate, they eliminate. But let's leave politics at the door, because the wealth itself is the real spectacle. Chateau Louis XIV, France, $300 million. Once called the most expensive home in the world, fountains that run on timers, gold leaf on every surface, rooms that have never been slept in, just waiting. And that's just the vacation spot. His main residence, the Riyadh Palace, 4.9 million square feet. It has its own hospital, its own cinema, multiple mosques. Halls that stretch so far you'd need a map just to find the kitchen. 7,000 supercars, just like the Sultan. But King Salman's taste leans heavier. Mercedes Maybach Hess 600, 4.8 million. Bugatti Veyron, 3.4 million. And yes, a gold Rolls-Royce Phantom, 2.5 million. Because if you're going to own a Rolls, why not make it impossible to ignore? But cars are toys. The real flex? The planes. A fleet worth over $2 billion. His personal Boeing 747, 500 million, almost entirely finished in gold, with a throne room on board. Because when you're King Salman, even at 40,000 feet, you don't stop being king. And when he lands, a golden escalator rolls out every time, no exceptions. Then there's the water, super yachts, plural, worth over $500 million combined. The crown jewel, the Prince Abdulaziz, $100 million, a floating palace with royal interiors that make five-star hotels look like motels, marble, silk, gold fixtures, and a crew of over 60 people just to keep it running. But here's the thing. King Salman isn't the richest on this list, not even close, because the next name controls more than oil. He controls the future. Number 8, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the king who doesn't need a crown. $30 billion. That's his personal fortune. But his real power? It's not in the number. It's in the fact that he runs Abu Dhabi, the richest oil state on earth. After his half-brother's death, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed, he didn't just inherit a title, he inherited an empire. And he's been building it ever since. The Emirates Palace, $3 billion. Not a hotel, a statement. Walking through its doors feels like stepping onto another planet, one where gravity bends to wealth. Gold columns, gold ceilings, bathtubs covered in 24-karat gold. Not plated, covered, every surface designed to remind you that you are not in the same world anymore. But he doesn't just live in Abu Dhabi, he owns pieces of the world. A mansion in Beverly Hills, $45 million. Luxury estates across Europe, art collections worth over $100 million. Paintings, sculptures, pieces so rare that museums beg to borrow them. And cars. Oh, the cars. Bugatti Veyron, $2.5 million. Lycan Hypersport, $3.4 million. Lamborghini Veneno, $3 million. And the crown jewel, Bugatti La Voiture Noire, $18.7 million. The most expensive car ever sold. One of one, and it's his. Then there's the yacht, the Azam, 590 feet long, $600 million. One of the largest in the world. It doesn't just float, it dominates. Every harbor it enters becomes a spectacle. Because when Sheikh Mohammed arrives, the world stops to look. But the thing that sets him apart? He doesn't flaunt. He doesn't need to. His wealth isn't loud. It's absolute, quiet, unshakable, like the desert itself. And that brings us to number 7. A man who didn't inherit a fortune. He built one. From sand. Number 7. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the prince who built a dream. $15 billion? That's the estimate. But estimates mean nothing when you own Dubai. Not just property in Dubai. Dubai itself, every skyscraper, every artificial island, every impossible project that made the world say, that can't be done. He proved them wrong, over and over. His palace, the Al Wazl, $500 million, 100,000 square feet, decorated with ivory, with precious metals, with materials so rare they don't have price tags. But that's just home base. His real estate portfolio spans continents. He owns more land in the United Kingdom than the British royal family. Let that sink in. A foreign ruler owns more of Britain than the crown. 63,000 acres in Scotland. A Dallas mansion, $45 million. And then there's Monaco, a penthouse worth $323 million. One of the 10 most expensive properties on Earth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Mediterranean. Marble imported from quarries that no longer exist. Furniture custom-made by artisans who worked for years on single pieces. But let's talk about the garage. Because this is where the Sheikh's personality really shows. Bugatti Veyron, $4 million. Lamborghini Reventon, $2.5 million. A car designed to look like a fighter jet. Angular, aggressive. Only 20 were ever made. Ferrari Enzo, $1.5 million. Mercedes SLR McLaren, $1 million. And that's just the starting lineup. Dozens of Rolls-Royces, Bentleys, Maybachs, each one customized, each one impossible to replicate. And then, the yachts, the Dubai, $350 million. One of the largest privately owned yachts in the world. It's not a boat, it's a floating palace, multiple decks, helipads, pools, interiors that rival any five-star hotel. When it docks, entire ports rearrange themselves to make room. But here's the moment that defines him. His wedding. $200 million. Not for the ceremony, for the stadium. They built a new stadium just for the wedding. $100 million for construction. Another $100 million for the celebration itself. Thousands of guests. Performers flown in from every corner of the globe. Fireworks that lit up the sky for hours. It wasn't a wedding, it was a declaration that nothing is too big. Yet for all his grandeur, Sheikh Mohammed is not the top. Because the next man on this list, he's richer than most kings. And he's not even royalty. Number 6. Mohammed Hussein Al-Amoudi, the Invisible Emperor, $11 billion. No crown, no throne, no title, just land, oil, mines, banks, influence that stretches across continents. He's the richest man in Ethiopia, but his empire doesn't stop at African borders. Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, Sweden. Everywhere his name appears, money follows. He's called a businessman. But that word doesn't fit. Businessmen have competitors. Al-Amoudi has associates, people who work with him, not against him, because going against him means going against a network so deep, so intertwined with governments and industries, that resistance becomes irrelevant. His properties? Mansions in Switzerland that overlook alpine lakes, estates in Saudi Arabia worth billions. Not millions, billions. He's one of the largest landowners in the kingdom. Land that holds oil, that grows crops, that generates income while he sleeps. His annual earnings? Around $1 billion every year, passively. But he's not just sitting on wealth. He's moving it, investing it. In agriculture, in mining, in energy, in banking. He controls financial flows that determine the stability of entire regions. When he shifts capital, markets react, not because he's loud, but because he's smart, calculated, 3 steps ahead. And yes, he has the toys. Ferrari LaFerrari, $2 million. Bugatti Chiron, $3 million. A Rolls-Royce covered in gold, because why wouldn't he? But unlike others on this list, Al-Amoudi doesn't show off. He doesn't post, doesn't parade. His wealth is functional, a tool, not a trophy. which makes him more dangerous, more powerful. Because power that doesn't need to prove itself is the kind that lasts. But if you think a quiet billionaire is the most surprising entry, wait, the next one will shatter every assumption you have about wealth. Number 5. Prince Turki bin Abdullah Al Saud, the Golden Prince. $22 million. That's just his car collection, not his fortune, just the cars. And they're not just cars. They're sculptures, art pieces, machines wrapped in 18-karat gold. Literally. His Bugatti Veyron? $10 million. 5 times the original price. Why? Because it's coated in gold. Not painted, coated. The entire body, shining under sunlight like a piece of jewelry on wheels. Rolls-Royce Phantom Coupe? $4 million. Gold-plated, hand-stitched leather interior. Wood trims so rare the trees they came from are now protected by law. And then there's the Lamborghini Aventador Super Veloce, $1.2 million, also gold. Because for Prince Turki, if it's not gold, it's not worth driving. He doesn't just own cars, he commissions them, works with designers, with engineers, turning factory models into one-of-ones that can never be replicated. London knows him well. He's famous for driving his golden fleet through Knightsbridge, parking on the most expensive streets, causing traffic jams, not because he's reckless, but because people stop, stare, pull out phones. His cars don't just turn heads, they stop entire blocks. Once he got a ticket, $110 for illegal parking. He didn't move the car, just paid it, pocket change. But here's what makes him different. He's young, he's visible, he's the face of a new generation of Saudi royalty, one that doesn't hide wealth, that celebrates it, posts it, shares it, not out of arrogance, but out of pride. Because to him, this is culture, this is heritage, this is what it means to be royal in the 21st century. And yet, even his golden Lamborghinis can't compete with the next man's empire. Because what's coming is not just wealth, it's legacy on a biblical scale. Number 4. Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Al Thani, the former king who never left. $2.1 billion. That was his fortune when he stepped down as Emir of Qatar. But stepping down didn't mean stepping away. It meant handing the crown to his son, while keeping the kingdom. His main residence? The royal palace in Doha. Over $1 billion. 15 separate residences within one complex, each one decorated in gold, real gold. Walls, ceilings, fixtures. It's not a home, it's a monument to power, to history, to the idea that some families don't just rule countries, they become them. But he didn't stop at Qatar. He built a secret palace on the coast of Oman. 2 years of construction, completed in 2019. No photos, no tours, no public records of its value. Just whispers, rumors, stories from contractors who signed lifelong NDAs. All anyone knows? It's big, it's gold, and it's his. His car collection rivals anyone's. Lamborghini Aventador SV, Ferrari, LaFerrari Aperta, Bugatti Chiron, each one customized, each one kept in climate-controlled garages that cost more than most people's homes. He doesn't drive them often, doesn't need to. They're symbols, investments, pieces of a portfolio that spans industries and continents. And, like all the others, he has yachts, plural, golden interiors, helipads, pools, rooms that have never been used, just waiting for the day he decides to sail. But here's the twist. Sheikh Hamad stepped down, gave up the throne, and yet his influence didn't shrink. It grew, because real power isn't in the title, it's in the network, the relationships, the legacy you build when no one's watching. And that brings us to the top 3, where wealth stops being personal and becomes national, where kings don't just own palaces, they own the culture itself. Number 3. King Mohammed VI of Morocco, the people's billionaire. $2.5 billion, a fortune built on contradiction. He's called the king of the people because he pays off debts for poor farmers, secretly, without announcement, just handles it, wipes away suffering with a signature. And in the same year, he bought a mansion in Paris, $100 million, near the Eiffel Tower, with views that make postcards look dull. Two sides of the same man, generous, ruthless, compassionate, calculated. His main palace? Dar el Makhzen in Rabat, the Palace of Happiness. It's where state ceremonies happen, where foreign dignitaries visit, where Morocco's power is displayed in marble and gold. But it's just one piece. He owns a resort villa in Agadir, oceanfront, panoramic views, another residence in Fez. Historic, private, untouchable. And then there's his genius move. He turned royal palaces into hotels, ultra-luxury 5-star properties that generate over $100 million a year. He's not just preserving history, he's monetizing it, letting the world sleep in rooms where kings once walked, for a price. His art collection is legendary. Rare paintings, sculptures, pieces from masters whose names alone command millions. He's founded museums, cultural centers, entire networks dedicated to preserving Moroccan art, not as charity, as legacy, as proof that wealth isn't just what you own, it's what you leave behind. He travels accordingly, private jets, royal helicopters, motorcades filled with the world's most expensive cars. But unlike others, King Mohammed doesn't flaunt, he governs, and his wealth serves that purpose. It's not decoration, it's infrastructure. But if a king without oil can build this much, what about a king without a kingdom?